we're at, hence, delineation that these bases, right? So, an interesting question is whether everything exists in the basis. But if you put this next to the statement that cyclic existence and nirvana exist only when sentient beings don't recognize the appearances of the basis as appearances of the basis, then it's hard to say that cyclic existence and nirvana exist. I'm just raising questions. Exist in the basis. And I think we can find, as you read through, I think we can find statements, and I'm just saying I think. We can find statements. I'm quite sure we can find statements. Well, that'll be my thesis today. I think we can find statements that cyclic existence and nirvana do not exist in the basis. Cyclic existence and nirvana exist only within the mode of appearance, because dum-dums like us don't recognize appearances of the basis as appearances of the basis. And just as a sidelight here, we speak about, the text speaks about appearances of the basis. I've used two different translations, basal appearances and appearances of the basis, which are, I think, both acceptable translations, but just today I changed all basal appearances to appearances of the basis. I think maybe appearances of the basis, as I was saying last time, perhaps is a little clearer. But as Mipam-gyatsho and Khetsun Sangpo have made clear, it's really appearances of the effervescence of the basis. And even though the effervescent, our problem is that we don't understand the effervescence of the basis as the basis and get all wound up in the effervescence as only the effervescence. We Nyingmapas want to be able to say that's a problem of the effervescence and it's not a problem of the basis. In other words, by using our hands like this is the basis and this is the effervescence. And even though it's an effervescence of the basis, we want to be able to blame the effervescence without blaming the basis. And and I think we have to be able, now I will separate myself from us Nyingmas and say we have to be willing to let them get away with this. Blame the effervescence and not blame the basis. Even though we're being told to recognize the waves, right, as water. See the effervescence as the basis. Still, if we want to impute where the problems rests, the problem rests, all our problems are in the effervescence, and we can never say the problem is in the basis. And I think we have to let them get away with this. Much as we have to let Gelukpas get away with the metaphor, simile metaphor, of the non-conceptual wisdom realizing emptiness, with their metaphor of water in water, and in the non-conceptual realization of emptiness being a case of these so-called two being totally undifferentiable in terms of experience, and yet now we Gelukpas talking about wisdom, always talking about wisdom as being two different things. Non-conceptual wisdom being impermanent, compounded, emptiness being permanent and uncompounded. And letting them get away with it because they've built their system on any consciousness being impermanent and compounded. Get away with it maybe up to a point. Mipam, down below in this text, has a biting criticism of Geluk, which amounts to saying, if from the point of view of your experience, meaning your non-conceptual experience of emptiness, you like this description, you feelingly like, I'm putting it in my own words now, and it's easy to hunt out the page where this occurs. You feelingly think, oh, this is a really good description, that non-conceptual wisdom is impermanent and compounded, and this even extremely subtle consciousness of the fundamental innate mind of clear light. Yeah, when you really come down to it, that's impermanent and it's compounded. Then you haven't gotten down to reality. Because the actual mode of being, mode of subsistence, is, and may I use the Tibetan first and then translated, Ying dan yeshe nisu me. Ying is the expanse or the sphere. Yeshe is pristine wisdom. The expanse and emptiness, non-dual, are not two. This wisdom and emptiness, this pristine wisdom and emptiness, and even primordial wisdom and emptiness are not two, the non-duality. And that is the mode of subsistence or mode of abiding. That is the mode of abiding of all phenomena. And this is where we differ from you Gelukpas. So even if we go along with the Nyingmapas on their explanation, and we go along with the Gelukpas on their explanation, right? And even I, Jeffrey, call myself a Nyingma and go along with that. See, it's like table tennis. When you play, you join in. When you play regular tennis, you join in. You can't be off the court. You can't be off the court and experience the play. But then you also can benefit from, at some point, the criticism. At some point, the criticism may be biting, to see the bite. But of course, the problem, to understand the bite, of course, the problem we have is, unless we've directly realized emptiness, we're following the words and trying to understand the bite. As far as the words are concerned, we can't just write off the bite. I can write off certain parts of the bite because we're going down two different conceptual routes. But Mipam gets down to a very important bite. And that's the bite from which Khetsun Sangpo says the difference is like sky and earth. Now, okay. That's something, that's food for thought. That's food for thought.
Can I ask, can we clarify the relationship between wisdom and consciousness?
In which system?
Well, it seems to me that by Nyingma saying wisdom and emptiness are one and not two.
They don't, well, I want to pause on that. They say are non-dual, and then what comes to mind is the statement "chunyi ki long chenpo chik," and the word "one" is used there. The one expanse of the noumenon, the one great expanse of the noumenon. Chunyi is dharmata, and which I translate as noumenon, because we have, and we'll take the time to unpack this. We have dharma and dharmata, and in Tibetan, chur and chunyi. And in English, there are these terms, phenomenon and noumenon. And as I've said before, Kant has taken over the term noumenon in English, and I'm rescuing it back. I don't say anyone owns one term forever. And 10, 15 years ago, I found, maybe 20, one dictionary, almost the name appears to my mind, that just gave a definition of noumenon as the final reality. But then they rubbed that meaning out later, even that dictionary. But just the final reality. So then phenomenon, noumenon, dharma, dharmata, churnyi. So I thought, well, that's a good term. But a lot of people hate my usage of noumenon because it's so fancy. It's a bit too fancy. And my translations are difficult to read anyway because I'm following the Tibetans so closely. If we're talking about if you think that in the, when you reflect back after directly perceiving emptiness in a non-dual manner, here's, Mipam in Khetsun Sangpo. If you as a Geluk reflect back on your direct realization and you think, oh, that's a really good description of that wisdom or consciousness. You see, I'm answering your further question a little bit. That non-dual wisdom, that non-dual consciousness, to call it impermanent, compounded, that's really a really good description. Then you haven't understood the real mode of being. You haven't gotten down to it at all.
Is wisdom equivalent to consciousness?
Okay. Let's take Geluk first. Wisdom could translate two different terms. One would be sherab, and oh wow, this is a whole bag. But if you take sherab in its more glorified meaning of the sherab has a wide range. Wide range goes anywhere from the discrimination, not a higher level of discrimination, to even wisdom realizing emptiness in a dual or non-dual way, and it's one type of consciousness, so it's not equivalent. Same in Nyingma. And then there's pristine wisdom, which is yeshe. And a lot of people think that in Nyingma, yeshe has to be primordial wisdom, but I say it doesn't. Maybe sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So neither system equates what I would translate as wisdom with consciousness. Consciousness is a wide term. So Mipam, as we'll see below, chooses actually 2 points in the tantric path to ask this question of Geluk. But I'll restrict it here to the final, as we got it, to the final fundamental innate mind of clear light, which in the stages of, when we lay it out in the stages of death, it's the eighth level. But of course, it's not just, the ordinary person's experience of death, but it's when a yogi is capable of using the fourth of the 4 subtle minds, the fundamental innate mind of clear light, in the path, which is the 8th of the 8 minds, 8 levels in the process of death. And if you look in the Lati Rinpoche book on the 8 levels of death, we've talked about this, right? In this series? No. I mix up the 2 classes that are concerned with Khetsun Sangpo's books. The first being the experience of mirage, the second being the experience of smoke, the third being the experience of fireflies within smoke, the fourth being the experience of the sputtering above the top of in Tibet or India, it's described as the top of a butter lamp when it's about to go out, and there's the flashing of the light above. It's not the flashing inside, because you'd see the wick and so forth, but the flashing of the light. You see there's a lot of movement. And within the fourth also then, there's the perception of the light of the lamp itself, lamp meaning the flame, which let's say now I will switch to being a so-called Westerner. I don't like the term. Westerner who's used to candle flames, who's seeing a candle flame, because we're not, but that used to butter lamp flames. I don't know about people who are quite used to butter lamp flames, ghee flames, if you'd see a ghee lamp or not. But frankly, when my meditation, sometimes when my mind calms down, I do see a candle flame. But it's a candle flame. I don't see a butter lamp flame. So you see the difference between, here's the butter lamp, the top of it, and you see the fluttering, and then when the mind calms more, you see the flame. I don't know if you see it down inside or above with the butter lamp, probably above, because I don't see that one, but I see a candle. I actually see the candle too, and I see enough so I know it's a candle, in a very steady flame. I don't see a fluttering flame. And my experience of it is such that I know I don't have to pass through the three preceding and the first part of the fourth for the flame just to appear. In other words, it's a serial progression. Now, it could be that the first three are cases, within Buddhist structural psychology of appearing but not ascertained, not noticed. It could be. But in any case, if it's not noticed, then, or it could be that you're there in number 4. Then number 5 is the first of 4 subtle minds. You ought to read that book. It's the first of 4 subtle minds. And Mipam has a lot to say about those 4 subtle minds. Because this is what Japa Tonga particularly read about in Geluk, that he wants to bring into our Nyingmapas. And, this is very important, and understood correctly is in Nyingmapas in the path of method. Nyingmapas has a path of method and a path of release. Path of method and a path of release. Path of release involves the special techniques of Nyingmapas. Special techniques of a lama's introducing you through quintessential instructions to intrinsic awareness. Path of method also involves quintessential instructions, but how to induce these 4 minds, as in the Goya Samaja Tantra. In other words, Nyingmapas is friendly with the Goya Samaja Tantra, which a lot of people who talk about Nyingmapas think Nyingmapas is not friendly, or is antithetical or whatever with the Goya Samaja Tantra. They're out to lunch, as far as Mipam Gyatsho is concerned. Read this book 5 times and it'll get through to you. Path of method, path of release. They're different paths. If the path of release works for you, you don't need the method. What is the method? The method that causes the winds in the right and left channels to enter the central channel so that you experience these 4. You don't need it if you have the path of release. That's that's an unusual quality of Nyingma Dzogchen. But Nyingma Dzogchen also has a path of method. Why? Because the path of release doesn't always work. So, Nyingma Dzogchen path of method has views about these four. And of course, Geluk has views about, presentations of these four. Jabba Donga studied the Geluk presentation of these four and brought them over into Nyingma. And there are some points, major point is about impermanent and compounded that Mipam says is wrong to bring into the Nyingma Dzogchen path of method. Now again, I'm off on explaining the background of this, and I've got to get back to where I started on the. Oh yeah, we're on the 8. We're on the 8. And so the basic layout of the 8 is going to be the same. The basic layout of the 8, and we're up to the 5th, which is the mind of vivid white appearance. So you see, your mind was getting steady with the 4th. And with the steady candle flame, your mind is really calming down and getting steady. And then with the dissolution of conceptuality, the 80 conceptual minds, 80 conceptual consciousnesses, which is a very interesting layout of the 80. You experience this mind of vivid white appearance, which is your own mind appearing like moonlight, not like the moon. We haven't done this? No?
We've done it before after this degree.
Yeah. Like moonlight, but not like the moon shining. And you don't have a body. You have just consciousness. And that consciousness is not like moon shining from here over to there. And it's not like being in a tunnel and seeing white light over there, which undoubtedly happens to people who are dying. Because this is, attested to. But this is another level, deeper level. And if you experienced it, you would think you were enlightened.
It's not a non-dual mind, right?
There's some duality in it. But I would say if you experienced it, you would think there was no duality. But it is said, there is a level of duality. And so it's compared to moonlight. But you have to be very clear, it's not the moon shining from there, like to you over here. And then that ceases. It's called dissolves. But in Geluk texts, cease, dissolves is replaced with cease. But they keep, it says dissolve, and then that's explained with cease. And what then appears is the mind of vivid red or orange increase, which is compared to sunlight. And both of these are said to be in like an autumn sky. Why an autumn sky? Because in India, in autumn, the rains have stopped. And in autumn, because the monsoon has stopped, there's no dust in the sky. Well, I don't know if there's any time when the dust has stopped in India, but you can imagine it. The rain, it's been raining, shall I say, like hell? But anyway, hell shouldn't even come up in this, because if I say you'll feel as if you've been enlightened, frankly, you will. So the sky is utterly clear, you see, because it's been raining so much. So there's no dust to be worked up by wind into the sky. So your mind is sky, and your mind is red or orange. The text says red or orange. The sun is like that, you see. But again, it's not like the sun shining from, you're not seeing sun over there shining to me with like a body over here. It's, shall we say, your mind is red or orange everywhere. Sky. And then that, however long it lasts, and as His Holiness said, and he was quizzical about it, depending on the constitution of the meditator, it can be of a certain size. And it's like he said, what does that mean? He was somewhat quizzical about that. How could there be size? And, any sense of size, but of course, okay. Then that dissolves, which is explained as ceases, and then the sky again, but the metaphor is used of sky and of darkness, like of dusk. Dusk, you see, is the darkest time of night. Because you see, it doesn't tell you this, but the book doesn't tell you this, but your eyes are not used to the darkness, so it's the darkest time. So dusk doesn't mean there's a little light or something like that. I think I've translated it as post-dusk, meaning it's utterly black. Utterly black. Now, I still use the word vivid. Now the words are garlamba, white lamba. Lamba is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia means, it gives you a sense of garlamba. Mar is red. Mar lamba. Nak is black. Nak lamba. Lamba. And you can't say ish in English, not white-ish, because that would be like nasty white. And this ain't nasty, or red nasty, or black nasty. You know, it's not ish, like off black, off white, off red. But but vivid, I think conveys it. Vivid black, but that's not shiny black. Anyway, it's black. Maybe we should do that. White, red, orange, black. That's pretty good. And then the blackness becomes so thick. And this comes from the Evans Wentz Gache Dawa Sandrup translation, back from those books. There's got to be one of them. You swoon. And it's hard to say you lose consciousness, but that's the word in spoken English. Because, of course, consciousness is still there, but no awareness. You swoon. You conk out. It's very interesting. And these are subtler. The red-orange is subtler than the white, and the black is subtler than the... It's interesting that the black gets very thick. It's subtler. And then the extremely subtle mind of clear light dawns. So relative to the extremely subtle mind of clear light, the white, red, orange, and black are pollutants. And the text calls them pollutants. A funny thing in our text is that the text misreads the suffix, misreads as a nga rather than a ta or da. Instead of lerje, it reads longje, which then Khetsun Sangpo reads meaning into it both ways, which you'll see when we come to it. But then from the context of Mipam's own book, you can see that I can see, put it that way, what the misreading is. This occurs also in Gelukpa texts, where the misreading creeps in. But the white, red, orange, even if these are, in terms of spiritual experience, as I'm saying, you'd think you were enlightened with the first two. Thrilling, like knowing your own face, that kind of experience. But in terms of the extremely subtle mind of clear light, they're pollutants. And when His Holiness begins his commentary in Tantra in Tibet, Tsongkhapa's Ngarim Chamo, the great exposition of secret mantra, and he explains the meaning of conqueror, victor. Victor over what? He gives meanings, and the final explanation he gives is conqueror over these three. These three are the three troublemakers. And these three also, in the Goya Samaja system, and probably in anybody's system, are also given the names of the three qualities, the three guna, in the Sankhya system. And this is openly recognized, of sattva, rajas, and tamas in the Sankhya system. These are the three strands that produce all matter. These are the three strands of Prakriti. So it's an interesting intersection that's recognized with Sankhya, which is, from the Buddhist point of view, the fundamental, the Ur system of India. In which, in the Sankhya system, has to be recognized for what it is and overcome, and thereby overcome. So, now, this is the foundation of the Goya Samaja system, leading to how one uncovers, manifests the fundamental innate mind of clear light. And it is the foundation of the, and you'll see it, in the path of method, in the Nyingma Dzogchen system, and it is the basis of the quarrel, one could say, the controversy between Mipam and Jabadonga, because he's bringing the Gelukpa identification of these subtle minds, but especially the first of the four, especially the first of the four and the fourth of the four, as impermanent and compounded, over into Nyingma. Which means not recognizing yeshe, but intrinsic awareness, as permanent and uncompounded. Good day. See you in a week.